Imagine how difficult it is for a child to say no to a parent, a teacher, or a coach. The abuser often manipulates and tries to confuse the child or teenager about what is right and what is wrong. Many abusers will tell the victim that the abuse is okay or that it's just a game.
My experience has been that people there is that culture of silence. That's something that's embarrassing to talk about.
Many times when they come to SARCC, we either hear from them directly or maybe from their best friend. Someone has called us because they've been concerned about this individual, because they've seen behaviors where they're talking about running away, they've had suicide thoughts, they're acting very rebellious. Sometimes we see kids cutting themselves. There's a host of behaviors that sometimes indicate that there could be possible sexual violence.
Sexual assault takes place when someone has been forced to a sexual act against their will. It can be an inappropriate touch or contact with the human body. The aggressor can be a friend, a stranger, a member of the family, a close companion, a spouse, parent, or someone with authority.
It hurts because he was a relative, and he knew he could come in and out of my house whenever he felt like it. It was 11 years before I talked about my sexual assault.
It took me probably until the age of 10 to talk about my experience. I was, as far as I can remember, 6 years old when the abuse started with my father.
It took me almost 25 years.
And then every time I talk to someone who has survived this, it just kind of renews my hope and it renews my conviction in thinking that the moment that someone discloses that they've been the victim of a sexual assault, that moment is crucial.
When that happens, when they have that sense that they can share with you something that has been very hurtful in their lives and still at the same time realize that there's a love present, that there's a respect present, and at that time many times they'll open up and they will talk about what has occurred.
Don't expect obvious signs when a child is being sexually abused. Signs are often there, but you have to spot them.
There are several indicators that parents and teachers and relatives can look for. They range in age. Some of the indicators for children as young as 2 and 3 can be different from kids who are 16, 17, and 18.
I think that as I look back now, I can identify with the information that I have now. I can identify that I, maybe isolated more and that I think that I ate more. I'm now in recovery from a drug abuse addiction, and before I knew how to use drugs or drink alcohol, I knew how to eat. And I think that's where it came first. And it's still something I struggle with.
When children come to SARCC, often what we're hearing from their parents is that sometimes little ones are having problems sleeping, problems with eating, there might be bedwetting. There's all sorts of possible symptoms that parents are concerned about or their significant others that we can help them with.
I remember that I always removed myself from groups. I felt dirty. I felt that if somebody were to sit alongside of me, they would get dirty.
We can see changes in the youth that the child may become very promiscuous in their activity, or the child may become extremely hard, very callous, very closed off, a very negative attitude towards others around them.
At school, I changed too much. I was a bad student. I couldn't concentrate.
It affects me in my relationships with men. It affects me in my relationship with bosses. It affects me in my relationship now. To be intimate with someone on any level is affected by the first person that you knew love from.
Sexual abuse is humiliating. It's a cruel crime that deeply violates the human being physically and psychologically.
She asked, I do remember what she asked me. She said, had anybody touched you in that way? We had watched Family Ties, and Mallory had been assaulted by one of her father's friends. And my mom just asked me if anybody ever touched me inappropriately in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. And I said yes, my father had.
I would stay in my room with the door closed all the time. If I had to take a shower, I had to make sure I took a shower when he wasn't there. Because if he was home, he would come into the bathroom. I never wanted anybody to know about it. I was very embarrassed because the person who hurt me was my grandfather. I wanted to stand up, but I couldn't. After he left me, I left the room and I went downstairs. And again, I tell you, I didn't understand what was going on.
And another common misconception is that kids lie. Kids typically do not lie about this kind of abuse. A lot of times when kids play with one another, they create fantasies where they're strong and powerful, because in real life they're not. They're 7 or 10 and they don't have much power. So if they're going to lie or fantasize about something, it wouldn't be a case where they put themselves in a weaker or submissive position. Typically they do not lie.